This is music, and this is just rude. Alright, so I actually finally have a complete set of Fuck You, We're from Denmark's. And I just ended up kind of harvesting, whenever I come across a copy of one of these, I grabbed it. So that means I have multiple copies of most of these, apart from this one here, the second one. It's a bit harder to come by. I have multiple copies of these, and I will VCLT them so people can hear what was going on in the Danish underground metal scene in the 90s, because that's what these are. These are compilations by a label first known as Progress Red Labels, then they changed to Progress Records, and then they changed to Die Hard Records. You may know some of these names that they had, but what they did was, in addition to releasing like full lengths and all that stuff by metal bands, what they did was they made these compilations featuring underground Danish metal bands, mostly extreme metal from the 90s. So this is a really cool snapshot of what the Danish underground sounded like in the 90s. So that's why I grabbed these. So you got the gray one here. That's the first one. So that's kind of like a legendary one, right? And then you have the black one. That's the second one. This one is a bit more difficult to come by. And then you have the red one called 100% Death Metal. And then you have the blue one called 100% EU Dip, also known as the bad one. And I am on this one. Of course it had to be the bad one, right? But I'm on this one, and it's pretty cool to be on one of these legendary underground compilations, although I am on the bad one. So the booklet of the first one looks like this, and you got like an introduction. You got, band photos, band logos, and lyrics. That's pretty cool. And this kind of concept is kind of present on all of them. But let's just check out which artists we have on the first one. I'll do this with all of them, so it might end up being a bit of a long video. We have Detest, pretty well known internationally, I think. Ill Disposed, more well known internationally. You have Exhaust, Agonize, very cool death thrash band. Geronimo. On here they have Bastards Will Pay, which is kind of like death, doom, hardcore punk mix. It works really well. You got Corrosive on here. Cyborg, featured members of Concra and Furious Trauma. Disaster Area. Dark Region, I knew some of the guys in Dark Region. The vocalist, I went to high school with the vocalist. The vocalist also played drums in some other bands. And the guitarist actually ended up replacing me in the band I'm in on this one. After I left, they brought him in. He was a much better guitarist. Anyways, so they were better off. So that's Dark Region. Iniquity, I think they're pretty well known too. Moratorium, Avoid, so these are more, I think, obscure. Caustic, some of you might know them. They had some demos out. And then you have Iconoclasm. And last, Abattoir, and it's not the thrash metal band. This is kind of like a death metal band. It features some members from that went to the same high school I went to. They're just a bit older than me. So very cool, lots of cool stuff here. So what do we have on the second one? Let's just check out the same type of layout. I really like this. You get to see the logo, you get to see the band, what they look like, and you get some lyrics and an introduction. So there you go, by Anders Lundemark. I think he was actually in Concra, wasn't he? I think so. So that's cool. Anyways, we have Frozen Sun on here, Nations of Death, Sacrificial, and they ended up actually releasing some albums, so some of you might know them. Infernal Death are on here too. Assail, Golem were kind of like an underground band. A lot of these bands, by the way, were from the same town I was from, so that's pretty cool. Oh, you have Cyanotic, Eclipsed Existence, one of my favorite death metal songs. It's just an amazing song. Got Pugnacity, don't remember those. You have Dominus, that's the precursor to Volbeat. Volbeat used to be a death metal band known as Dominus, and then they morphed into being this almost kind of like rock and roll band. Human, another band here. Ceremony. On this one, I think Ceremony, they are a death metal band on this one, but then they became a black metal band, and then they became a progressive metal band. The drummer, I was very good friends with the drummer. He was actually the guy who was the singer in Dark Region. And most of the other members also went to the same high school as I did. They were just a bit older. So I think they had actually graduated, some of them, before I started, enrolled in that high school. But the drummer was still in high school when I enrolled. So very good stuff. Mordor are on here. Fallen Angel, Solid Pain. And a lot of these, I think, are probably obscure. Beyond Serenity, I think they ended up releasing an album or two. And then you have Morpheus, Death Doom band, also from my hometown. Also a lot of members from the same high school I went to. Again, just a bit older than me, so most of these dudes had also kind of graduated the year before I enrolled. But yeah, the high school I went to was kind of known for having lots of death metal and doom metal and thrash metal dudes. So that's pretty cool. And also a lot of alternative rock fans. It was a pretty cool high school, actually. A lot of musical stuff going on. Anyways, let's turn to the fourth one. So let's see. This one has an introduction by Bo Sommer from Ill Disposed. And again, same concept, kind of like that Nations of Death here. They just have drawings of themselves. But yeah, there's another. So maybe that's kind of a theme here. Another band, more like a satirical drawing. There you go, right? Same concept. So who do we have here? We start out with Condemned. They did some demos, I think, but I don't know if they are well known. Angel Accelerator Death, long name there. That's the name of the band. Infernal Torment, I think they ended up releasing a couple of albums and are kind of well known. Revolting Phimosis. The next band is Coitus Interruptus. I think they ended up releasing some albums too. Stone Age. This is the next band. Chaosium, the next band. Saturnus, Death Doom. They released a bunch of records. And I think they're still active. Autumn Leaves, I think they also released some records. Decomposure, more obscure there, I think. Mercenary, they ended up being quite well known. Idiosyncrasy, next band. Nugatory and Catharsis. And the last band is Goat, which is kind of like a comedy death metal band. One-man band with a member from, or maybe an ex-member at this point, from Ill Disposed. I just want to see who did the introduction to the first one. So let's see here. Oh yeah, that's kind of epic. Jakob Hansen from fucking Invocator. That's great. I love Invocator, one of my favorite bands of all time. So awesome. So now to the bad one. So let's see. So I actually don't know who did this. Whoops, who did this introduction? It says L.A. Nashrail. Don't know that dude, but you know, whatever. But yeah, you got the same concept. You know, band photos, lyrics, and logos. Apart from these dudes don't have a logo. Well, that's interesting. Erector. There's a very young me on this band photo. Very cringe. Oh boy. If you like naked dudes and butts, there you go. You can thank me later. Okay, cool. So who do we have on this one? Starts out with Grope. Groove metal. They later became kind of almost like an alternative hard rock band, but this is more like groove metal with a bit of a punch to it. Followed by Impotators, kind of funk groove metal. Followed by Zirkus, funk thrash metal, I would say. Scandal, So What? More of a mid-paced thrash metal kind of affair. Gigandi, weird experimental stuff. Vicious Aroma, comedy thrash metal. This song is called Smell Awaits. Followed by God's Elevator, another more experimental, weird kind of thing. Rip and Tear, another mid-tempo thrash metal song. Most of these bands, I think, are, apart from Grope and Impotators, they did release a couple of albums. Gigandi too. I think most of the bands on this one remain kind of obscure. Rip and Tear. The next one, Trend. Very, very big local name in the town I was from. Kind of like funk groove metal too. Followed by Paragon of Virtue. These were just kids, actually. Children doing funk rap metal. Very inspired by Rage Against the Machine. The kids here, actually very, very impressive. I gotta be honest. Followed by Erector. That's the band I was in. Followed by Courage or Courage. That's more like traditional heavy metal. Followed by Glum, which is also like groove metal. Now we're kind of like into the mid-90s. That's why you got lots of groove and alternative and experimental metal. The guitarist from Glum was in the band I was in for a very, very short while, actually. And then I think he left so he could focus on Glum, and we brought in another guy who was very gifted guitarist. So that's great. Followed by Gum Buddy, some more alternative, experimental stuff. Stale Fish Grind, another kind of not grindcore, apart from the name, at least not this song, but does have some punky roots for sure, alternative roots as well. And the last band is Mortal Dread, just to sort of finish it off on a more sort of traditional death thrash note. So the blue one here, and yeah, a lot of these bands were locals from the city I grew up in, including just from this one, Glum, Courage or Courage, obviously Erector. Trend was also from my side of part of the woods, whatever. On this one, the first one, you have Dark Region were from my town. Abattoir were from my town for sure. There might be some other bands from my city on here. The red one, you have certainly, or maybe, yeah. Let's see. Maybe there's no Odense band on this one. I'm actually not sure. There might be some of the more obscure ones. So that might not be any Odense bands on that one, but I'm not sure. On the second one, you have Golem, or from my town, Odense. Ceremony were from Odense, and Morpheus were from Odense. There are probably some more Odense bands. Odense is the name of the town I grew up in, and that also makes it very special to me that there are lots of bands on here that were from my town. I used to go to gigs with them, and a lot of them were kind of like a couple of years older than our band, so we kind of looked up to them and like, oh, I hope we can get to play in the same venues as they do, and we did, just a bit later. So that's pretty cool. And also, I mean, also just, so that's very special. And also a lot of the other bands were from the Danish underground, and a lot of them would frequent the venues in my town anyways, especially a place called Rytmeposten at the time, another place called Badstuen as well, and some other venues around town. But so these are full of nostalgia for me, obviously, but also very good music. And as I said, apart from the black one, I do have multiple copies of most of these, and they will be VCLT'd. So, and I will continue to harvest them and grab them whenever I can. It's kind of like they're hard to come by, and then sometimes you just run into a school of them. So there you go, a complete set of Fuck You, We're from Denmark's. Bit of a rambling video, but there you go. Thanks for watching.